Hello and welcome to SU Officers Media Day 2026. I'm Orko, joined by Georgia, and today we're going to take our candidates on a speed date, spending 5 minutes with them in the hot seat.
We'll be learning more about their campaigns, and they'll also be drawing a shield for us with some of their Sheffield faves so we can get to know them on a personal level too. So without further ado, let's get started. So here with me is our first candidate. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, yes, my name's Ben Simpson, pronouns he, him, and I'm running for the President of the Students' Union.
So today we'll get you to do some drawings. We'll ask you some questions about your campaign, so feel free to get started.
Excellent.
So to get us up and running, what is the single most important experience you've had at Sheffield that made you decide to run for this role?
Oh, my most important experience. So most important experience I'd say was 2 years ago when I helped in an election. One of my friends was running for the activities role, it was called at the time, and essentially I was on the campaign team. I'd never been involved in anything related to this before, and I had a really good time, so I was just like, I might as well give it a go my final year. I went away for a placement year, and then I've obviously come back for my final year, and I very much decided that I'll just give it a go and have a good time.
Lovely. And if you were a uni building, which building would you be and why?
So I would be the management school. So that's the one at the top of Conduit Road, the one with a really tall hill. That's because as a business management student, I hardly spend any time in there, unfortunately, because my lectures are all over the place. But essentially, it is a very nice building. It has a wonderful view over the city, and it's my go-to place if I have to walk up that hill.
Mm-hmm. And the uni and the council often treat us students as long-term tourists. As president, how do you make them treat us like citizens with rights?
I would, as president, I would be very much trying to push forward for increased rental reform, specifically around in accommodation. Unfortunately, some of it is quite poor. I believe 40% of accommodation students feel are substandard. Although the university isn't majority of the time, the private landlords and across the city, essentially it is very much treated as like a hotel inn for accommodation, especially in the student villages and in private accommodation. So I would be very much pushing forward like a code of conduct for all student accommodation across the city, in collaboration with obviously local governments such as the council, just to ensure we're more like residents as opposed to just people who will be in an accommodation for a year and just passing through.
Mm-hmm. And you lead the other 5 officers, or you would lead them if you get the role. If 2 of your officers are fighting or there's some uncomfortable energy, let's say, within the team, how do you fix that and make sure everyone's working together for the students?
So what I would do is obviously communication is key, and also kindness is also pretty important as well. Essentially, it would be working between the 2. Let's say if 2 officers obviously are having a disagreement, coming to some sort of compromise, but hearing both sides of the story, trying to get them to communicate in let's say a kind and nice manner, just to see if they can resolve it themselves. But definitely it would be compromising to ensure that whatever the disagreement is about, it's resolved and we can continue to obviously deliver for the students at this university.
Mm-hmm. And previous officer teams have had to deal with circumstances like extended strike periods, encampments, university cuts. If a situation like this was to occur during your term, what values will you centre when you deal with them?
So what I would put forward first is I would say honesty. I understand obviously the students' unions had to go through a lot in the past few years, but essentially honesty around the situation. If there's, let's say, a situation, for example, with the cuts, where obviously it's in a obviously stressful for some students. Obviously, I believe transparency is key here, and obviously honesty, saying what we can do, what we can't do, what we could possibly deliver on, and communication as well is also a really important factor to obviously communicate with the students. Sometimes it feels like, as a student myself, that there isn't that much communication, especially around the like external shocks, especially. So it's very much about keeping to these points and then working through it together, whatever the situation might be. So making sure that we're always talking to other people, always getting feedback, and then whatever it is, we'll tackle together.
Perfect. And please, can you show us what you've drawn today?
So I'll show this camera.
Yeah.
It's all in black, how it fits the theme. So my favourite place is the cinema. I've kind of drawn one of those cinema like chat boxes, whatever they're called. Favourite place in the SU is Baked, the sausage roll store downstairs. So I've drawn a sausage roll. Favourite hobby is running. I don't know whether it's catching up on the screen, but I've got a person who's running. And then 2 campaign symbols. I only managed to draw one. One would be sunglasses, what I'm obviously wearing. My other one would be the tie I'm obviously wearing, but I didn't get to draw that in time.
And can you look into your camera and give us 3 words about why people should trust you with their vote?
Trust the sunglasses.
And thank you for... No, that's 3. You're good with that. Well, thank you for joining us today and good luck with your campaign.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
I am joined now with another candidate this year. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you're running for?
Hi, my name is Tom. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm running to be your president.
So can you please talk to me a little bit about how you plan to balance your personal values and also balancing the values of the students you're representing that may not be the same as yours?
I like to think I have quite a wide array of links within the SU. I'm in part of loads and loads of societies, so I really get to see a big range of students all throughout the week. Constantly listening to different people will be absolutely pivotal to this. I want to introduce more forums as well across the university and the SU, so that will constantly be in communication with the student body directly.
Perfect. And a bit of a silly one, but if you were a uni building, which building would you be and why?
Oh, I would go for Jessup West.
Oh,
Funky, colourful, slightly odd to look at, wonderfully constructed. That's Tom.
perfect. And now, when the university management says no to some of your big promises, what's your plan to turn that into a yes?
I think that if I go in quite strong with my view, then there'll be definitely therefore room to sort of back down a little bit, but really keeping hold of my core values throughout. A big thing I do want to speak to the university about is on no more staff redundancies and really trying to keep staff in their jobs, prioritising education over profit, keeping industrial action to a minimum and really sticking by that line, but allowing a slight bit of flexibility to get stuff done.
Now, with these cuts, we've often seen things happen quite quietly. Students might not have been aware of it. But at least in my experience recently, I've started to really see that through tutors leaving and the restructure of the schools. How do we make sure that this isn't being done without student knowledge? And how do we make sure that students really know how they can make a stand here?
I really want to introduce a bi-weekly bulletin from the President directly that will highlight all sorts of communication with societies, but especially during strike periods, saying what is going on directly from both the university and the unions. I've had quite a few lecturers that have sort of disappeared recently, and by keeping departments up to date with their students and using the SU as a great middle ground, hopefully there'll be more communication directly throughout for strike periods.
And if you could only achieve one thing from your plan or your ideas within the first 100 days of potentially being president, what would you prioritise and why is that your priority?
I would really prioritise student safety more than anything else. I think we do have this zero tolerance stance on harassment and assault, but I don't think it's strong enough, and that inclusions officers aren't being equipped enough with the skills they need. Just providing more support for victims of harassment and assault throughout the university and the SU will be the first thing I want to achieve when I get into office.
Perfect. And what is one experience that you've had at Sheffield that made you decide to run?
Being part of Film Unit has absolutely changed my experience throughout university. I cannot imagine doing university otherwise. Chairing meetings, learning how to projectionist, being a house manager, and really running so many difficult experiences through that have shown me that I do understand how this SU works, and I can do the best that I can as president to try and have those experiences for others.
And of course, you'll be leading a team as president. How do you make sure that you encourage people working together when there may be disagreements and people might have differing ideas? How do you make sure that everyone's heard while also coming to the best conclusion possible?
I think really trying to get sort of cohesion between the different roles. I know that we're still in quite a transitionary period from having more officers to less, but really trying to encourage people to get used to their roles, really learning what they'll need to focus on, and not being afraid to say any sort of ideas that they might have to the other committee members.
And can you look to this camera and show us a bit about what you've done on your shield? You can talk us through it as well.
I've got some lovely abstract drawings. My favourite hobby is doing music. I'm in several orchestras, so I've done a sort of version of a saxophone. The best SU food is the sausage rolls. I'm sure that looks just like one. My favourite place, I've gone for the Nelson Mandela Auditorium, those colourful chairs and that very realistic screen. I've got one symbol and it's a heart, because I really want to get more communication and more love for each person.
Perfect. And when you look into this camera, can you please give me 3 words as to why you think people should trust you with their votes?
Transparency, communication and cohesion.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I hope you wish you luck with the campaign.
Thank you very much. Thank you for today.
I am here with another candidate. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, my name is Anton. I'm running as the communist for the president of the Sheffield SU.
So if you'd like, you can pick up the shield and start drawing, but we'll just get started with some general questions. So how do you plan to balance your personal values with representing students whose views might be completely different to yours?
Well, I guess it's hard to put exactly what my personal values would be, but I'm running on a campaign of free education, free tuition fees, these kind of ideas. And I think it's hard to come against that, to be honest. So if there were students who were against that, I don't know. I think most students would fight for free education, for free tuition fees, for these kind of ideas. And I think that is a human right almost to give education to everyone. So I guess there could be democratic debate on that, but I think it would very quickly be overrun.
And for other issues that may come up in your time, if you were to be elected as SU president, there may be other issues outside of free education that might come up. How would you make sure that you're listening to people who have differing opinions?
That is such a good point, because I think the SU should be a fully democratic body, which I don't think it is right now. I've been to Palestine meetings put on in the past at this SU, and it is crazy because we went to these meetings that were meant to be building a movement, and I just got told exactly what the movement was. I think I got told to write to my MP. I mean, this is not a democratic movement. This will never build a movement. And so all of these questions need to be totally discussed politically and open. And so I guess I put on general assemblies where discussion was encouraged, I guess. Actually have proper debate for the politics going on, and build movements around what students actually cared about. I think that's the most important thing. Actually listening to students, because that is not what currently happens at this SU. And I know I haven't ever been part of a democratic debate at this SU, apart from the ones that the encampment put on outside of the SU. But that, again, wasn't supported by the SU.
And previous officer teams have had to deal with circumstances like extended strike periods, the encampment, university cuts, racism-fueled riots. If a situation like that were to occur in your term, what are the values that you'll centre when you deal with that?
On the question of these Palestine rallies, I guess in full support of the student movements that break out. I mean, fighting for it with mass movements of students and attempting to build these movements. And that's how we crush all these things you talked about. If we talk about racism, it is a fight against the capitalist system as a whole. And we can't be done with tiny methods or positive discrimination. These ideas, it has to be through a wider movement of students that actually can kick them off the street, I guess. And so this question of the encampment happens, then the SU should be fully behind that. The SU should be this body that pushes forward student movements, supports student movements, not necessarily at the head, but just to actually link to all the students and discuss with them. I mean, this is not currently the role the SU plays at all. I think it is just a shop right now, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. We wouldn't take away the shop, but it should be so much more. It should be a weapon that students have. They can actually use to fight. I think the sheet I was given to when I ran for SU president, they told me that the most important thing to students was the cost of living crisis, the rise in rents, these things. The SU does nothing to support students in this case. Very little. And because it is needed a wider struggle against the whole of capitalism. I mean, this is the fundamental issue for why everything is everything is in austerity, there's crisis everywhere. It's because the whole of British capitalism is in chaos. And so this fight back would have to be far wider than just the SU. It would have to spread to all universities and all workplaces. And that is why, as an SU officer, as an SU individual, it has to be a weapon that is used to fight all these things. I mean, there's no individual thing that one person can do, apart from the massive students that could kick all these issues or support all these issues to reach their goal, I guess.
And you talk about free education. How do you stop the university from quietly axing the courses that people love and some of the tutors that people really value?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question, to be honest, because it is going on all the time right now. I think, like, in previous years, we've been called out for not being very realistic with these questions. And I've seen, like, the SU officer team in the past oversee £400,000 of cuts, and then the SU, the president quit after this, was maybe bullied out for putting things together. It's a massive question. And I think that is exactly it. What is needed to solve the crisis in universities right now is a wider struggle, a nationwide struggle that links to every SU, links to every workplace, and can actually kick capitalism off campus. And it is going to take a massive movement. And that is the fundamental thing is an SU needs to be a weapon that students can use to fight back, that can link up with, unions on campus, the UCU, all these things. And actually, because we fundamentally control the university, the students in Startfair do everything. It's not the management, it's not Cohen Lamberts who does nothing and just takes like a six-figure salary. But rather, if we mobilize students, we can actually control the whole of the university. We can kick all these businesses off campus, the arms companies, all these things, and plan the university in the interest of workers and students, which is in the interest of education, which is what is needed to keep protecting all the courses that are being cut, and to protect the students' interest of educating themselves and not being sent to arms companies. So yeah, I guess the solve of this is to actually fight back. It's not to have backroom deals with management. That will not solve anything. The whole of society is crumbling right now. The NHS is crumbling. Public service is crumbling. And so any method to try and tweak it a little bit and talk to managers will fail. And that is what we've seen in the past with the £400,000 of cuts to this SU, or the 19 million planned in this year.
And can you please look to your camera here and give us 3 words about why people should trust you with their vote?
Not a politician, student politician.
And now I'm joined by another president candidate. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hiya, I'm Molly Holland. I'm running for SC President and my pronouns are she, her.
Right, if you grab hold of your clipboard, let's get drawing. And whilst we're busy with your drawing, could you tell me, like, what's the single most sort of experience that made you want to run for president?
That's a good question. I am a trade unionist. I sit on my regional Young Members Committee with Unite. I think the skills I've gained through that from talking to people and having to, talk to people above me using the most, plain English possible. So you think, oh, maybe I could do this. I really believe in the power of unions, and student unions the student union is a union, so.
Yeah, and I think, everyone has manifestos, everyone things that they want to achieve. In your, sort of first 100 days, if you were elected, what's one priority or what's one thing that you really want to make sure gets the push ahead?
I think my priority would be to try and do something for students about the cost of living crisis. So when I started university, the rent I paid for my university owned flat was £50 cheaper than it is now. There was also 80p bus tickets, 80p tram tickets. So I think, lobby the university as much as possible to bring them back, and also introduce cheap, budget-friendly food options on campus.
I like that you mentioned, cheap food, cheap sort of push that. How do you actually stop in terms of cuts? We've got quite a few cuts in academic now with the strikes and stuff. How do you actually stop the university axing sort of the courses that are being axed at the minute?
I think there needs to be a bit more transparency about what's happening. I think there's a certain number of students who are very aware of what's happening. They're people whose courses themselves are being affected. I think what people don't realise is that more and more courses are going to be affected. I've had modules cut. I'm a chemical engineer. I'm in the School of Chemical Materials and Biological, and there's cuts being proposed for the materials department. So first of all, let students know what's happening, what's at risk, and hopefully all of our collective voices and working with UCU staff and making sure that they feel supported by the students might hopefully make that campaign a little bit better.
And you mentioned your history as like being part of unions, like you've always been inspired by that. When the university sort of, or at least the SU board sort of pushes on maybe going against a decision, how would you convince them to, always have those students' interests in mind?
I'd like them to remember who's watching. I think that just goes back to just having utter transparency about what's happening at council, what the trustees are agreeing on, and if they're having to make bad decisions, they need to be able to explain very clearly why that's happening, why that choice has had to be made. Accountability.
And you obviously the head of the SU officer team, you're leading 5 other officers. How would you ensure that everyone gets along well, or everyone's heard, basically?
I've had a lot of experience on club committees, 3 years now, in 3 different committees. I think the thing I've learnt most is that everything works a lot better when people feel valued. So it's letting people make decisions themselves, but giving them the resources to make those decisions. It's making sure that there's a culture that if someone is struggling for whatever's going on in their lives, they feel comfortable to like speak out, and everyone's going to, you know, help them out, have their back. So just being as fair and supportive as possible.
All right, brilliant. Well, if you could show the camera
Oh
how
dear.
far along you got with your curved arms, and
I'll do very quickly.
walk us through it.
Oh dear. Okay, my favourite place is definitely the Peak District. I've said I might have said I'm part of the walking club. I'm there most weekends. It's lovely to just escape university life and see nature. I really like the pasties, big pasty fan. Favourite hobby, anything to do with music. And my campaign symbols, that's meant to be a star. My friend drew it on the poster and it looked great, much better than that. And that's meant to be a stripy jumper. I've got lots of stripy jumpers. You're just going to have to use your imagination with that.
Well, thank you so much, Molly, for coming down, and best of luck.
Champion. Thank you. Thanks.
I am joined by another candidate running this year for the SU Officer Elections 2026. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Paul Miller. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm running for SU President.
So, to get us started, many students feel like the SU is a bubble and it doesn't really represent them. How will you specifically reach out to those disengaged students that maybe don't come into the SU and interact as much as some others?
I say one of my main things I'd like to do is run sort of drop-in surgeries and information sessions to broaden people's understanding of what the SU is and what can be achieved and how getting involved can make a difference instead of sitting in silence and not getting involved.
And previous officers have had to deal with difficult circumstances like extended strike periods, the encampment, university cuts. If a situation like this were to occur during your term, what values are you going to make sure that you centre in order when you deal with these things?
I'd say student centralisation in the sense of making sure that both academic staff, the university and students are aware that they're at the centre of it. And if they're the ones that are being affected, they're the ones whose voice should be heard the loudest.
And what's one experience that you've had here in Sheffield that has made you want to run?
God, I'm going to need a minute on that.
That's okay, we can ask you a different question, we can come back to that.
If we can, yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. So we've seen a lot of cuts being done in the university. How do we actually stop the university from quietly axing courses and tutors that the students really appreciate?
I think we need to have a loud voice and question sort of where funds are being spent, because obviously we're one of the richest universities in the country and there are certain people that are paid significant salaries. So holding them to account for what that is. And like I said, I think big believer in power in numbers. If we speak up and we are vocal about it, that there's more chance of change instead of just sitting and complaining quietly.
And Sheffield is a big student city, but locals often complain about the number of students. How do we balance being a good neighbour but also having students enjoy their right to live and socialise in the city?
I think looking at doing more sort of social cohesion with the residents. Like I'm on a course and there's a lady that's a mature student as well. She lives next door to the park and she's complaining about the student side of things as well. But I think there's not enough engagement between local residents and students. It's quite divided.
And when you're in a team, for example, if you were to be the president, if 2 officers were fighting or something had gone wrong within the team, what are you going to do to make sure you bring everyone together and really encourage the community for students?
I say sit down and look at what's caused that, look at the underlying issues and try and maintain the underpinning of how important it is that we work together and that we are acting not just for us, we are acting for students as a majority. And so sometimes we might need to set aside our differences to be able to affect real change. And
if you, let's say, had to prioritise one thing that you would like to get done, let's say in your first 100 days of being one of the SU officers, what would you prioritise and why?
I think a lot will be around sort of employment rights for students. So I think there are a lot of students that struggle to find work at the moment and don't necessarily understand their rights in terms of employment, and that's a key focus that I want to look at if I'm elected.
And just to go back to that question, have you thought of an answer for an experience that maybe leads you to running?
I'd say actually the strikes that happened last year, being in foundation year, we were the students that were actually most directly affected by it. I think that tied in with my previous experience in youth council has sort of reignited my passion to want to get involved and help make change, instead of just saying this is what we should do, but actually doing something where it can be actioned.
Nice. And I know you've not finished, but can you show us what you've done so far for your shield?
I've only got 2.
You can talk through the other 2.
So I've got my favourite hobby is rugby, played for 20 years, and I think it's a sign of teamwork and unity. And then my campaign symbols is an arm for strength, and it's a person with grey hair because I'm a mature student, so bringing experience. My best SU food, I haven't really eaten any of the SU food other than from the shop, so I have to say Mill Dill. And my favourite place in Sheffield, I'd say, is probably Riverland Valley, with the 12 sort of mini waterfalls around. I think it's quite a nice place to disengage. It's so close to the city, but you're in the middle of nowhere, and I think that's, it's a gem to have.
Perfect. And can you look into your camera here and give me 3 words about why people should trust you with their vote?
Experience, empathy, and action.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and good luck with your campaign.
Thank you. Hopefully that's okay.